Something has been off lately. You've felt it, haven't you? Maybe you can't quite name it. Maybe it's been showing up as a kind of restlessness, a low hum underneath your daily life, like a frequency that won't stop broadcasting. You wake up thinking about someone you haven't spoken to in years. A conversation you thought was buried surfaces in your mind at 2 a.m., word for word, like it just happened yesterday. You find yourself hesitating before sending messages, second-guessing plans you were certain about, and then, almost like the universe is confirming your unease, a name you didn't expect appears on your phone screen. An email from someone who disappeared. A memory that hits you out of nowhere and doesn't let go. Most people chalk this up to stress, coincidence, random noise. They scroll past it, distract themselves, move on. But what if you're not supposed to move on right now? What if these aren't random interruptions? What if everything that's been surfacing in your life lately, the old feelings, the unresolved conversations, the unexpected returns, is actually a signal? And what if ignoring it means missing the one thing this entire period has been trying to show you? We are still in the heart of Mercury retrograde. And before you roll your eyes and think you've heard this all before, stay with me. Because what's happening right now is not the version of this story you've been told. Here's what nobody talks about when they talk about Mercury retrograde. Everyone focuses on the disruptions, the delayed flights, the miscommunications, the technology glitches. Those things are real, but they're the surface. They're the smoke. And if you spend all your time fanning away the smoke, you never look for the fire. You never ask why it started burning in the first place. Mercury governs everything that moves between people and places. Thought, language, information, signal and transmission. When it appears to slow down and reverse from our vantage point on Earth, something profound shifts in the energetic architecture of how things communicate with you and through you. The external world starts behaving like a mirror, and not the flattering kind. The kind that shows you the angle you've been avoiding. Think about what has been appearing in your life over the last few weeks. Really think about it. The person who came back into your awareness, why them? Why now? The conversation that keeps replaying in your head. What was left unsaid in it? The plan that fell apart at the last minute. What were you actually walking into? These are not accidents of timing. During Mercury retrograde, the universe has a very specific habit. It returns things to you. Unfinished things. Unhealed things. Things that were shut down before they were complete. And most people experience this as chaos, as setbacks, as frustration. Because from the outside, it looks like everything is going wrong. But you are watching a process that has a purpose. What looks like a malfunction is actually a correction. Right now, in this specific window of Mercury retrograde, something particularly unusual is at play. The energy isn't just asking you to slow down and double-check your emails. It's asking you something much deeper. It's asking you to look at the patterns underneath your choices. The story you've been telling yourself about why certain relationships ended. The reasons you gave yourself for walking away from something, or for staying too long. The version of events that you settled on because it was easier than sitting with the complexity of the truth. Mercury in retrograde has a way of dismantling those comfortable narratives. Quietly, gradually, and then all at once. You may have already noticed that things you thought were resolved feel suddenly unresolved. Doors you thought were closed feel like they're creaking open. And there is a specific quality to this moment, because we are building toward the end of this retrograde cycle, moving toward the station direct around March 20th. That date matters, because everything that retrograde stirs up, everything it resurfaces and rearranges, tends to reach a kind of crescendo in the days before Mercury stations direct. The energy doesn't wind down before that date. It intensifies, which means if something has been trying to get your attention, a feeling, a sign, a person, a truth, it is going to find a way to get louder before this window closes. There is a particular phenomenon that happens during Mercury retrograde that almost nobody prepares for, and it is the one that tends to shake people the most. People come back, and I don't just mean physically. I mean they come back energetically. You start dreaming about them. You hear their name in random conversations. You find an old message, an old photograph, something that belonged to them. And then sometimes, not always, but often enough that it cannot be dismissed, they actually reach out. An old friend you lost touch with, a former partner who went silent, a family member you've been estranged from, a colleague from a chapter of your life that feels like a different lifetime. There is something about this period that acts like a gravitational pull on unresolved connections, drawing them back into your orbit with an urgency that can feel disorienting. When this happens to you, the instinct is either to rush toward it or to slam the door shut. Both of those reactions are understandable, but both of them can also be ways of avoiding the actual question that the return is asking you. And the question is rarely about the other person. The question is almost always about you, about something in you that wasn't finished when that connection last closed. Something that has been waiting, patiently, quietly, for the right moment to be examined. Mercury retrograde is that moment. Right now, you are in that moment. There is a pattern I want you to notice, not in the abstract, but in your own recent experience. Over the last 2 to 3 weeks, has there been a conversation you've been putting off? Not because you forgot, but because something in you keeps steering away from it. Has there been a truth sitting at the edge of your awareness that you've been circling without landing on? Has there been a relationship in your life that feels like it's been asking a question you haven't answered? This is what Mercury retrograde does when it is working at full force. It doesn't create these tensions. They were already there. It just removes the noise that you were using to drown them out. The busyness, the distractions, the forward momentum that lets you avoid looking back. All of that gets interrupted. And in the interruption, in the silence between the usual signals, something older and more important finds a way to speak. The people who struggle most during Mercury retrograde are the ones who try to maintain the same pace, who push through the disruptions with brute force, who interpret the slowdown as a problem to be solved and not an invitation to be accepted. Because the universe during this time is not trying to block you. It is trying to redirect you toward the thing you passed too quickly, toward the conversation you needed to have, toward the truth that you were moving too fast to receive. And here is where the real tension lives in this current retrograde, the thing that makes this particular cycle more than just a cosmic inconvenience. Some of what is being returned to you right now comes with a deadline. The window created by Mercury retrograde is finite. When it stations direct around March 20th and begins moving forward again, the energy shifts. The mirror tilts back. What was being illuminated begins to recede. And some of what you were shown, some of what was offered back to you, may not come around again in the same form, at the same level of clarity. This is why the days ahead matter. This is why paying attention right now is not a passive act. It is a choice, and making that choice consciously with awareness changes what you walk away with when this period ends. Let me tell you something about the nature of signs during Mercury retrograde, because there is a very specific way they tend to arrive, and once you understand this, you will start seeing them everywhere. They rarely come as obvious declarations. They come as repetition. The same theme appearing in different forms across different areas of your life. A song that keeps finding you. A word that appears in 3 separate conversations on the same day. A feeling that doesn't match the external circumstances. A sadness with no apparent source. A longing without a clear object. A pull towards something you can't quite name. These are not random occurrences. They are the language of this retrograde period. It speaks in pattern, in echo, in return. You might be experiencing this right now as a vague restlessness, as a feeling that something is just slightly off-center, as dreams that linger too long into the morning, as conversations that keep circling back to the same themes even when you try to steer them elsewhere. This is the signal. This is Mercury retrograde doing what it does, not breaking your life apart, but trying to show you where the fractures already existed, where something needs attention, where something needs honesty. The question that this retrograde is whispering, and sometimes shouting, is simple. What have you been avoiding? And are you willing right now in this window to stop avoiding it? Here is the twist in this story, and it is the part that changes everything once you understand it. Most people treat Mercury retrograde as something that is happening to them, as a force that is acting upon their life and disrupting it against their will. And because they see it that way, they experience it that way, as a victim of cosmic interference, waiting for it to be over, counting the days until March 20th when they can get back to normal. But the people who come out of this period transformed, genuinely, meaningfully changed in ways that matter, are the ones who understood something different. They understood that Mercury retrograde is not a disruption of your life. It is a revelation of your life. Everything it surfaces from inside you. The old connections, the unresolved conversations, the buried feelings, none of it comes from outside. It comes from the places inside you that were asking to be seen and were not yet seen. Which means you are not a passenger in this retrograde. You are the terrain it is moving through. The unusual signals you've been receiving aren't signs of chaos. They are signs of coherence. Your inner life, your unfinished emotional business, your deepest questions, they are organizing themselves into a form you can finally recognize. The universe right now is essentially handing you a map drawn from the territory of your own experience. And the X on that map, the place that the map is pointing to, is some truth about yourself or your life that you are now ready to face. Not because the time is convenient, because you have been prepared for it. Because everything that led to this moment, every experience, every relationship, every choice that didn't land the way you expected, has been building toward your capacity to receive what this retrograde is trying to deliver. There is something I want you to sit with as we move through the final days of this Mercury retrograde cycle. Something I want you to carry into the hours and days ahead, especially as we approach March 20th and this particular portal begins to close. The signs that have been appearing in your life are not decorative. They are not background noise. Every person who has resurfaced in your awareness has resurfaced for a reason that lives inside you. Every conversation that has been trying to happen, every truth that has been circling your consciousness without quite landing, these are not coincidences of timing. They are the architecture of your next chapter trying to take shape. And sometimes, not always, but sometimes, Mercury retrograde delivers one final, unexpected piece. A conversation that cuts through everything. A realization that reorganizes the way you understand a long stretch of your own story. A person who says exactly the right thing at exactly the right moment, and you think, how is it possible that this is happening right now? But you already know how. You have been in this story the whole time. You have been one of its authors. The most meaningful thing you can do in the days before this retrograde ends is very simple and very hard. Stop moving long enough to hear what has been trying to reach you. Not with analysis, not with anxiety, just with presence. Just with the willingness to notice what keeps coming back, what keeps asking for your attention, what refuses to stay buried no matter how many times you walk past it. Because whatever that thing is, and you probably already know what it is, somewhere below the noise, it is not asking you to fix it today. It is asking you to acknowledge it, to stop pretending it isn't there, to give it the one thing it has been waiting for, which is simply this, your honest attention. Mercury retrograde will station direct around March 20th. The energy will shift. The mirror will tilt back. Life will return to its forward motion. But what you do in this window, what you choose to look at, what you choose to finally say, what you choose to acknowledge about yourself and your life, that doesn't go away when the retrograde ends. That travels with you. That becomes part of the story you carry forward. So before this window closes, I want you to ask yourself one question. Just one. And I want you to let the answer rise up slowly, without forcing it, without editing it before it fully arrives. What has this retrograde been trying to return to you? Not what you've been hoping it would bring. Not what you've been dreading. What has it actually been showing you, again and again, in the repetitions and the unexpected arrivals and the dreams and the quiet insistence of things you thought you'd already left behind? That answer is your signal. That is what this period has been building toward. And you have until March 20th, and really, you have right now, in this moment, to decide what you're going to do with it. The signs are already there. They have been there. The only question that remains is whether you're finally ready to read them.